Mosquitoes like you more if you've had a beer or two. And is this because they're getting drunk? So here's what to drink or what not to drink to avoid being feasted on by the blood-sucking burdens. So I got a DM asking me if mosquitoes get the effects of the drugs you're on because they're drinking your blood. So this question is like my can you kill off a tapeworm by overdosing on H question that I got a while ago, and that it is dependent on a whole bunch of theoretical things that all have to occur at the same time. So first, you have to have a high enough alcohol concentration in the mosquitoes for them to actually feel the effects. So a news organization was curious about this question too, and they went out and actually asked an entomologist, and the entomologist was like, yeah, no, the alcohol would be first too diluted to actually show up in their system. And then they're also like, hey, but there's this weird thing that mosquitoes have, which is known as a crop. And so in this crop, maybe you would actually take alcohol out of the system because the crop is for non-blood food. So you would get blood in and blood goes to its own special sac, and then the crop gets everything else that's non-blood. And so maybe alcohol would be put into this crop, and then maybe it would be taken out of the system before the mosquitoes would actually feel the effects. But we don't know if that happens because a paper on mosquito crops labeled them as a black box. That was published this year. But hey, we did solve that eel reproduction mystery, so maybe we've just moved on to the next science mystery, which is mosquito crops. So it could be too diluted in your system to feel the effects, and it could also be that maybe it's being destroyed before it's actually being put into the bloodstream of mosquitoes. But then also you have to have the correct receptors for mosquitoes to feel the effects, and they're kind of like fruit flies in terms of their receptors. I mean, we know that fruit flies can get drunk, so it's not too out of the realm of possibilities, but for things like opioids, well, mosquitoes don't have receptors for those, so they would probably never get high off of opioids in your blood. Now, intriguingly, there was a set of studies that did show that humans who are taking specific types of drugs, so ivermectin, which is an anti-parasite drug, as well as this weird drug that's used in very rare genetic conditions, if they were taking that drug, later that would actually have killed off the mosquitoes. What these drugs did was they basically remained in the human blood, and then the mosquitoes would suck up that blood, and then they'd be poisoned by them, and then they would die off. So it's basically like a human vector mosquito trap. Now my brain went down the dystopian levels here, maybe we're just gonna make humans become mosquito vectors, but that apparently is not theoretical. That is a thing that is real. So yeah, let's start thinking about the ethics involved in that too. Thanks. After I found that kind of anticlimactic, disappointing answer of, yeah, mosquitoes don't get drunk on your blood, I did find some really interesting other things about mosquitoes loving drunk people. So this first study was done in 2010 in Burkina Faso, and basically what they did is they had people go into a tent. So men would go into a tent, they would get shirtless, and they would drink beer. And this sounds like the beginning of a sketchy experiment. It's actually less sketchy after this. So they had people go shirtless into a tent, and then they had basically this fan push air towards this vessel of mosquitoes. There's 50 mosquitoes in there, and then they let loose the mosquitoes in this little trap, and they went to see which direction did they go. Did they go in the direction of the fan with no scent, an empty tent, or did they go in the opposite direction towards the person in the room? And did they go more in the direction of the person in the room if they had drank this specific type of beer beforehand? So what they found was that the mosquitoes were more likely to go after the person after that person had drank beer. Not only were they more attracted to their scent, but they were more kind of willing to work hard to actually fly against the fan that was in their face. And this didn't seem to be related to the temperature of the person or the amount of CO2. This seemed to be specifically related to if they drank beer. And the scientists in this were maybe it's just because drunk people have fewer defensive behaviors, so they're less likely to actually kill mosquitoes. Also, they might just be more of a highly nutritious meal because of things like the other food that they might be eating, and I'll get to that in a little bit. And there was another study which was not so great for volunteers. So what they had people do is they basically had people drink, and then they had them actually go in and put their arm into this box in which mosquitoes would land on them. And here they found that once again, beer seemed to make people more likely to be bitten by the mosquitoes. And this might be related to an increase in body temperature. They found that people who had a tolerance for alcohol were more likely to have this effect on mosquitoes. So mosquitoes liked them more than people who had just been trying alcohol for the first time. Yes, because there's a group of people who drank beer for the first time and then were just attacked by mosquitoes. That was the study. As somebody who's highly allergic to mosquitoes, this sounds terrible. And then finally, there was this very sketchy article, which was basically only a preprint, so it's not peer-reviewed yet. And that lack of peer review, yeah, it shows. It has some sketchy phrases in it. So for example, this study took place in, quote, inside a slightly steamy laboratory set up in a pop-up tent between 4 shipping containers in the Lowlands Festival in Netherlands. This was less mean, so they had people stick their arm into a piece of equipment, once again here, but this time the mosquitoes could not actually land on them, so they could not bite them. They just filmed them to see which people they were more attracted to. In this study, once again, people who drank beer were more likely to have mosquitoes attracted to them than those who, quote, abstained from liquid gold. And from that same sketchy festival paper, they also found that people who had invited somebody into their tent the night before at the festival were more likely to have mosquitoes love them. And mosquitoes were less attracted or repelled by the people who were wearing sunscreen or who did not shower. Here's the thing, all of these studies have been done on beer. There hasn't been anything on things like wine, but wine might lead to an increase of other VOCs that actually attract mosquitoes, so that could be worse. We just haven't done the studies on that. Now, there's an entire list of things that attract or repel mosquitoes according to science too, and I'm gonna go into this for the last minute, because this is a thing that you need to know and it's actually kind of fascinating. So here are the things that might attract mosquitoes to you. First, alcohol, just told you that. Here it might be the combination of things like ethanol and other things that make you sweat. So like capsaicin in spicy food, that might increase your likelihood of sweating, which might make you more attractive to the mosquitoes too. But the capsaicin itself is repellent to mosquitoes, so that one's kind of like a mix of both. Also, avoid bananas and other things with high potassium. This has a lot of good evidence for it. They have shown that if you eat a banana, you will have an increase of almost 4 times as many mosquitoes 3 hours after eating the banana. So high potassium foods, spinach, avocados, potatoes, avoid things like that too. I'm planning your barbecue for you right now, by the way. Red meats and other high protein foods, as well as sugary beverages and fruits, those increase the likelihood of mosquitoes being able to actually sense you. So they sense you by things like carbon dioxide, they can sense chemicals like lactic acid, and other fatty acids might tempt them too. So this is why some people are way more attractive to mosquitoes than others. There are genetic components here, there might be blood type components here, although there's some sketchy things going on in that literature. There's retracted papers that basically say that they just did the same data over and over again. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. So maybe not blood type. Yes, some people are just more attractive than others. Identical twins show similar levels of attraction, but some people are 100 times more attractive to mosquitoes than others. Now, garlic and dairy don't seem to do much of anything, but things like citrus fruits might actually repel mosquitoes, as well as vinegar. Just think about what you are eating and drinking before you go to something like a barbecue if you're one of the wonderful mosquito magnets like I am. Don't assume that that mosquito is going to get drunk from your blood, because it's probably not.